Welcome to She Manifests Wealth Formula podcast. I'm Liene and a master of subconscious mind, entrepreneur, and a creator of best-rated course on manifestation, wealth formula. With experience coaching 15,000 plus people, I have crafted a 15-minute formula to solve any problem, aiming to transform health, wealth, and relationships. In this podcast, I strive to showcase real-life transformation stories that bridge the gap from where you are to where you want to be. Let's manifest our lives together because nothing is impossible when we are the conscious creators of our life. Thank you for tuning in today, and let's begin. Welcome to She Manifests podcast, and I'm so happy and excited because CARISSA Johnsen is here, an amazing teacher. I've been looking throughout your social media, everything you have done, your life experience, and I can't wait to share with my community your stories and your wisdom. So CARISSA, please introduce yourself. How would you like to be called? What is your passion and mission?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it. I recently saw you interviewed Marie Diamond, who's a connection, a friend of mine, and I've had her on many shows that I've helped produce. And so this question is so interesting to me of how I want to be called or introduced, because I'm one of those people, and I think a lot of people might resonate with this right now in this time in history, that we're so multi-dimensional, we're so multi-passionate. We have a variety of things that we contribute to the world, but on a day-to-day basis, I'm a spiritual guide for entrepreneurs, for public figures, CEOs. I also do show hosting, I do producing, I have a podcast, I'm a writer, I'm a channel, I do energy healing work, oracle work. So a variety of different things, all with which my ultimate desire is to help people create success without sacrifice. So to really tune into their own soul guidance and to be able to tap into the laws of the universe, to be able to have prosperity without sacrificing their health, their relationships, their integrity in order to get there. And that's been a really big part of my journey, which is why I've been able to get to this place. But, I've been in this field for the last 8 years. And so I've worked with, I think the hours I'm at right now is near 5,000 hours of working with clients, being able to support them in deeper transformational work, spiritual growth, consciousness development, and such. And it's been a beautiful journey. But in order to be a teacher in this space, it often requires us to kind of go through a lot of initiations to be able to hold those frequencies and be able to guide others. So I'm just excited to be here and to see what unfolds in this journey, in this beautiful process. And my prayer that I'm holding is that those who really listen to this allow the words to resonate through them, allow this message to land deep within their hearts, versus it just being another thing that they listen to from the mind. Allow it to go much deeper and to penetrate the soul field.
I love it already. Absolutely. This is my intention too. So, CARISSA, when you're saying you are a spiritual guide, and I guess a lot of people want to understand, what does it mean to be a spiritual guide? Could you please explain from your perspective?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll give a little backstory because I think this gives a little bit more context. So I grew up a very highly empathic child. I could feel energy in the room. I could see people's patterns. I could know information about them without necessarily ever having met them. And throughout my journey, I didn't really realize that this would become a thing that I ended up helping people with. I just kind of thought that everybody had this connection and ability. And, in my early teens, I actually was very overwhelmed by the information I was getting. Energies from the other realms were coming through to me, and information was coming through to me in a way that was very confusing for a young child and young adult. And so I ended up getting my master's degree in clinical psychology to understand, why was I feeling so anxious? Or what was this energy? Was it mine? Was it someone else's? And as I studied the field of psychology, I realized that there was a lot of beauty in understanding people's psyches. But what was also missing was the body and the spirit connection, which is ultimately why I got out of counseling and that type of work. And I started a coaching business now. It's been 5 years ago, but I've been doing this work for 8. And I was coaching a lot of people into their, into their best life, or helping them manifest or build $1 million businesses. And throughout that process, there was a lot of mental frameworks, right? I was coaching them through different information, different pieces, decision making, etc. But in my own training, what I realized in counseling now was actually manifesting in the work that I was doing in the world. There was this really big spiritual component missing, where people were feeling like they had to will their way into their next level or their next prosperity. They had to do 10 different processes in the morning in their morning practice, or they had to essentially work very hard in order to get a certain level of success. And so I was initiated pretty deeply into expanding my own spiritual gifts. So they come through clairs, which are clear senses. So there's clairaudient, there's clairsentience. These are all gifts that we have that are beyond the physical normal senses. So the ability to see, the ability to hear, etc. So what I do is I take my background in psychology, paired with my awareness around the body and somatics, in combination with the gifts that I have as a human and as a soul, as a spirit, to help people understand the subtle energies of what is at play in their day-to-day life, in their relationships. So, the work that I do is beyond just coaching people and asking them really powerful questions and
So
helping
what do
them
you
go
do
deeper.
differently? What do you
So I
do?
ask them, yeah, so I share my psychic vision on their life, and I'm able to tap into information that they might have blind spots with, through psychic abilities, through intuitive connection to their soul, and help them bridge the gap between connecting to their soul.
So what you're saying now when you are talking to me, then you are able to see more than anybody else.
That's not necessarily what I believe. I believe we all have these gifts and abilities. I just believe that I've honed in on the ability to see information that some people, because they're in their day to day, might have a blind spot with. So I'm able to see people's blind spots and energies that are at play that they might not be fully aware of, and actually tap into higher guidance to translate messages to them that they might have been asking about. So my job is not necessarily to just give them information and act as a superior being and say, I have information that you don't. It's to help them bridge the gap to connect to the same information that I'm accessing, so that they have the same abilities and they can walk in their life with this connection to source wisdom.
So if I would ask you, so what is my blind spot?
Let me tap into that for a moment. I believe that what's really beautiful about your energy is that you have a really strong willingness to go to the depths of things. You are somebody who is really dedicated and devoted to personal development, to living a life that's beyond the average and the norm. I still feel for you that there might be still a part of you that is learning how to come into the body more, and how to live more deeply into the heart. You have very strong mental faculties. I feel like you are very strategic in a natural way, where you're not forcing information, but you're like, I got this idea, let's execute. You move fast. And some people in some ways can't necessarily keep up with that. But that's the beauty of your gift in the world, is you move fast, but it's aligned for you often. And so you see things happen very quickly. I feel like your next level is really going even deeper out of the mind and more deeply into the body, and listening more intentionally, because I feel like you you operate from this way of like, the information, but now you're more deeply feeling like, where do I source my pleasure? Where is my body leading me? And expanding more of your energetic field to attract more. Because in the past, you might have been someone who's worked really hard to get the things that you wanted, and you've made it happen. So you have this beautiful aspect of you where, you got to put it in the work, but you're also willing to let yourself be guided and led to things happening. So your next level is actually just living more fully from that place of soul. And so not even putting in as much effort to attract what you want in life, but more deeply feeling how how your energy field magnetizes more to you. So it doesn't feel like there's a blind spot, but it feels like a deeper embodiment that you're coming into, realizing more of your magnetism and how much it can attract and move energy and move in a room and create without so much effort and will. So you're still working a little piece around that.
Carissa, you're a real deal. I will tell you why. And very interesting because last year in August, I met a guy. So he's a healer. He's been a healer for Arnold Schwarzenegger, for Richard Branson, even for Oprah. And I had this beautiful opportunity to talk to him for 3 hours. And this is the first thing that he said to me, that my mind moves so fast. He says, I haven't seen these abilities in any people, because I really, when you give me information, it's like,
Yeah.
and for you, you can feel people like intuitively, like, probably you can see some energies and aura. But for me, it's like structurized. He said, you don't realize, Liene, you have genius mind. And exactly, sometimes people can't keep up. And I cannot even, when I speak, I just want to move forward. And when I'm coaching somebody, I see clearly what's their challenge, and I go straight to this challenge. So, I think that's also very important for me to let people know that this is the way my brain works. At least the
Yeah.
method teach me this way.
It's a gift of yours. And I think that, in the past, you might have had shame because you move fast. So there might have been things where it's like, oh, if I thought this through a little bit more, I stayed with this, it would have landed differently. But it's, you learn through experience also. You are a fast action taker and you're meant to get the information and act on it and then refine. There's a deep refinement quality where you're like, okay, we did that. Now let's change it into this way. So you do move very fast, and there's so much permission in you allowing yourself to continue to be in that way. You're just more deeply feeling the subtle qualities of how you want to take action in your life, and when there's times to like, okay, this needs to marinate just a little bit more. So there's just like a deeper refinement process happening. But you have really strong mental faculties and very strong gifts that structure things, so you can you can view information and be like, okay, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here. Like, you're like an architect. You're like a
Exactly
spiritual
what
architect.
you explained me exactly,
Yeah.
Carissa. And probably if I wouldn't have this experience, then I will, because I was thinking the same way. Everybody's thinking like that. But
Yeah.
like I can see the bricks like a Lego, right? You put them together and then next. So, I mean, okay, now we are talking. Okay.
Okay, I passed the
Carissa,
test.
yeah, you passed the test. Now we can talk about everything else. Carissa, I see also, I watched some videos and I saw you have quite interesting past, right? And you've had some journey, and you're 14, when you were 14 years old. Would you like to share this, so that, because you see, I want to inspire people so that they see it doesn't matter where are you coming from. It doesn't matter what has happened to you, what mistakes have you made. The moment is now when you are able to change and start from the scratch and beginning and build this beautiful life that you have. So tell me, where are you coming from and how was your past?
There's so many layers to this. I mean, this could be a whole podcast, but I think I agree with you. A lot of the time people see others on social media and they pedestalize them. Oh, they must have something I don't. They must have information I don't. They have qualities I don't. And we live in a very competitive society, and I grew up, I didn't realize until I was much later that there was some history of a sexual abuse in my family for me that I encountered when I was young. And it played out and it manifested in my life where I was very overwhelmed by other people's energy because my intuitive gifts, but also subconsciously there was a part of my life story that was being repressed because I didn't have the capacity to actually feel the emotions of that young one. So I got into substance abuse pretty young at the age of 14, which I believe is what you're referring to.
Yes,
And
about the
I was
drugs
dating,
and everything
yeah,
else.
I was dating a drug dealer. I got kicked out of school. I went to an alternative behavioral school, and my life was heading down a really bad trajectory. I had many friends that actually died from substance use overdose and, had gotten pregnant at a very young age. So luckily my mom removed me from that area and, my life started to change once I met my first mentor. But there's been a multitude of seasons in my life where I was just being really deeply initiated, when we look back, and I'm so grateful for all the experiences I went through, because I have so much more appreciation and gratitude. And I do believe that our souls sign up for certain things that we encounter in our life. I believe that there's contracts, there's agreements that we make. So everything for me as a teacher, including the emotions, including the abuser, including everything is always a teacher for me. And so that's, been a part of my life story. And the most recent thing that I've experienced that was really difficult for me too is, reaching the pinnacle of my career. Everything that I ever wanted, I had: the penthouse, the Range Rover, designer things, and being incredibly unfulfilled and unhappy and alone. I was working, 60, 80 hours a week. I was alone. I had, health issues, hormonal imbalances, and I was, at one of the darkest places of my life at the peak of my career. So this was also really a profound teaching moment for me to see that,
When was that?
that was 2020, around 2020. That was really when I was really skyrocketing. I was running challenges for people, tell people make 100K, and I was experiencing so much beauty in my life, and yet at the same time I was so deeply unsatisfied in my health and my relationships and such.
What changed? So back then you were focusing more on materialistic things, right? On fame and everything else. So what shifted so that you come to this point where I assume you are now happy, fulfilled, in the harmony, right? So what is
Yes.
different? What is different between then and now?
There's so many things. I would say the ultimate thing was I realized that there was a deep wound for me to be significant and for me to prove my worth. I have had a very, and still sometimes navigate a lot of wounding around not being enough. So no matter how many clients I had that were crushing it, or no how much money I was making, no matter how beautiful my home was, how nice my car, it was never enough. It was never enough. And I think that that's a little bit of a trap in the personal development space sometimes, where, and then even in the manifestation space, where we get the thing and it's like we want something else. And there's this beautiful balance that we get to have of being grateful for where we're at and then walking in the desire for more. So, I realized that there was a big wounding around that. So I needed to do a lot of healing work around that. There was also for me deep healing that needed to happen around my relationship with God and creator and source, and to be able to come into greater harmony with spiritual wisdom and not necessarily live from just the material world. And so my access to information that helps me on this path stay in alignment with what's true for me and make decisions from my heart and not my head, and really allow the pacing, really allow the universe to guide me, really allow myself to attract what I want versus trying to force myself to get it. But overall, there's less focus on material things, although I still love them and I still create them. I don't source my power from that. And one of the biggest things, if I could create a synopsis of what transformed it, was going from the love of power to the power of love.
Carissa, I hear you. And one of the things that you are saying, that our society is so driven by the significance, by materialistic things, right? And I know also you are a big fan of Tony Robbins. Is that true, right? And I've been one of Tony Robbins' coaches for almost 3 years. And one of the things that Tony is teaching, 6 human needs. Probably you do remember the certainty, variety, love and connection, significance, growth, and contribution, right? Do you remember those, right? And I think this is genius, what he has created, these 6 human needs. I always use them whenever I meet somebody, whenever I coach somebody. I just really see what are they driven by. So, and what Tony says, to be driven by the significance, it's nothing bad, right? Like Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and also Tony, they are driven by the significance. But the question is whether it's a good significance or a bad significance. Like the vehicle here can be, you can go as a Bin Laden, shoot people, right, to create this tragedy. And he's also driven by the significance. Or us, who are really like, I don't know how about you, but for me, I can say I'm also like driven by the significance, but also it is the significance where I know I contribute to the world. For me, it's like I want to help more people. Whose heart else I can touch, serve, change, and transform. And this is my significance. So, what do you think about that? When I say this, what's coming up for you?
I agree. And I just made a post about this the other day where I burned a picture of my face on a magazine the other day just to make a point of, it's not wrong to want significance. I think that's a beautiful thing to want to reach your potential and to be, and to contribute positively to the world. I think where there becomes a fine line is, what do you want it for? What's the why? Just like anything else. And I think there's some people who want it just to be seen in the world as being significant. But if you want significance to impact people, to empower people, to have positive influence, I think there's nothing wrong. And to be honest, I really live beyond the black and white thinking that things are right and wrong, good or bad. I'm just here to help people see where their drive, where their ambition, where it's coming from. Because if you want significance just for the sake of having it, what's the point? But if you want it and you're willing to allow yourself to be a vessel or a hollow bone for source, creator, to let yourself move other people through the power that you've been given, through the power that you've worked for, through the amplification that you have, I think that's a beautiful quality. And I don't want anybody listening to this or any of my clients, because I talk with this about them all the time, to do away with that. There's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to be significant, but I think just like anything else, why are you doing it? Just like weight loss. If you want to lose weight because you believe you're inherently not beautiful without it, that's the problem. But if you want it because you want to be healthy and you want to live long and be able to play with your children, that's different. So the outcome can still be the same, but the driver and the why is where we need to really focus a lot of our energy and attention.
Absolutely. Okay, I like it. So also, I know you teach people how to manifest 100,000. And I think the manifestation is not only you have manifested 100K within 6 weeks. Is that true, right?
It was
And
60
I
days,
think,
yeah.
yeah, and I think it's not about whether it's a money or something else. It's about everything, right? The manifestation formula, it's for everything, whatever you want. So if the person wants to manifest 100K within 6 weeks or whatever, what do they need to do?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things when it comes to manifestation is to realize inherently we are creator beings. So we're always manifesting in whatever direction. I think one of the biggest things that I've realized in my own process and helping other people make a lot of money is realizing it's less about doing and it's more about being. It's more about who do you need to become in order to hold that vibration of money, because that's what it is, right? Marissa Peer talks a lot about this in her work with money, which I really love and appreciate. It's just energy. So instead of saying, having more money makes me a better or bad person, it's just more energy. It's just more of an amplification in your field. So it's less about what you're doing and more about who you're being. So that's what I would focus more on. There's a lot of visualization that comes into that where you're visualizing yourself as the person. What comes up for you when you start to see yourself as being a millionaire, a multimillionaire? Where do you contract in your body? What belief systems come up for you when you start thinking about that of, oh, that's going to take a lot of time. Oh, people are going to want money from me once I create it. So it's more of an internal process and an action oriented one. Although once you
Yeah.
start to realize what's underneath it, then that's when you start to take more action. That's when you start to show up as the person. So when you go into a room, how would somebody who just made $100,000 or somebody who made $1 million, how would she show up? How would she engage? And that level of safety that you anchor into your body amplifies your magnetic field, opens up your channel to give you more information about what sort of action steps to take. Truthfully speaking, for doing this work now, there's no perfect 6 steps in order to do it. Everybody's a little bit fundamentally different, But at the same time, there are inherent things we want to look at, right? What are your belief systems around money? What comes up for you when you think about having it? Where do you contract in your body, and how can you bring more safety into that place? Why do you want it, right? What's the inherent reason underneath it? And ultimately, it's also setting the intention and kind of letting it go. What I've realized over the last couple of years in doing this work is that when we become too attached to it, that's when we also repel it, because we think we need it and it needs to look a certain way. And that's actually when we push the thing that we want fundamentally further away from us. So, I mean, there are definitely steps and processes, but one of the biggest things that I think often gets missed is, who do you need to become? How do you carry yourself? How do you hold yourself energetically? That's what creates the capacity for you to hold that type of power and influence and wealth.
Yeah, and recently, I'm studying a lot about money and the law of attraction and manifestation. It's just because I have passion for that, right? I feel the energy, even though I've been working with a lot of successful entrepreneurs. Still, this is the topic that, in my opinion, kind of represents your development, right? Because for me to achieve something, let's say this Range Rover, the Porsche, and everything else, it's not that much about the thing that you are achieving, but who you need to become in order for you to achieve that thing, right? And it's a good representation whether you are moving forward or no. And I think also everybody wants to make more money. Everybody wants, right? If they say no, then these are some limiting beliefs or past experiences. But if the person comes and they says, Carissa, I'm stuck. I'm really stuck and I don't understand. I'm meditating, I'm writing, I'm journaling, I'm doing whatever it takes, but I cannot take myself to the next financial level.
I get this often, actually. And I want to go back to what you were saying a moment ago, because there was something that really stood out. And when people hear, well, who do I have to be? Ultimately, it comes down to, when you're tapping into these things, whether it's like you want the Porsche, you want the Range Rover house, whatever, it's what you believe those things are going to make you feel, right? So I'm going to feel powerful when I have that car. I'm going to feel safety when I have that money. I'm going to feel loved when I have that relationship. And ultimately, you can source that within you, which ultimately creates it externally, right? Your external reality is a mirror of your internal reality. So it's more about, when I talk about being, it's what do you believe those things are going to make you feel, and how can you generate that within yourself now, which inherently will create the thing. And to go back to the question that you were asking a moment ago, which is, I hear this so often. This is something that I come in contact with a lot. You're meditating, you're doing all the things, you're going to the conferences, and nothing is happening. And that's, to me, when a lot of deeper healing needs to happen, because in the personal development, spiritual growth space, there is a lot that's talked about around what we're creating and what we're manifesting. But underneath that, we also have ancestral wounding that shows up. We also have traumatic experiences in our lives. We have deep fundamental core beliefs that inhibit our ability. So somebody might be doing all the things, but they might have a really strong belief system of, if I create more wealth, maybe they saw their parent growing up. I'll give an example because this will help people. If growing up they saw their father make a lot of money, and then they saw their parents fight because dad wasn't around because he was at the office, they might have developed a belief system that money will actually get in the way of healthy relationships, or money means that I have to be away from my family. So somebody could be doing all of the right steps, focusing on what they want, sitting in meditation, visualizing it, but they might have this inhibitor. They might have this core belief system that's getting in the way of that. And that's when we have to rewire our subconscious mind on a deeper level. Some of these things require deeper devotion to different approaches and practices that can help us expand more, and then can help us amplify our attractive field. So it's not enough to say you're doing the practices. It's getting really curious about what might be living inside of your cells, your system, your DNA, that might be blocking you, because we have protectors. We have things that in our psyche may not want us to be successful because of what the narratives or the experiences or the models that we've had growing up, or even ancestrally, right? Some of this stuff lives in our DNA. So it might not even have been in this lifetime born, but another experience that somebody's had, or maybe passed down in their family's lineage, that gets in the way on a cellular level.
So when you are saying, I love when you're saying rewiring your subconscious mind, which is in my work, this is the basic that I believe in too. But with your experience, with your gifts, how you are helping people to rewire their subconscious mind, these
So
limiting
basically
beliefs.
the work that I do is more spirit led. So it's really listening to the person's system. So I'm also trained as a shamanic practitioner, energy medicine facilitator. So the frequency that I can help somebody tap into works with the intelligence of the system. So, there's hypnosis, there's different types of modalities, NLP and such. So language, these things really matter. So there's a variety of tools, but ultimately the work that I do is I go into a field with the person. So we create like a sacred space. We can open up the energy field of the subtle bodies, their aura, their energy field. And by listening to spirit, everybody has this ability. We're all doing this all day. We're just not necessarily aware of what we're doing. I'm listening to what's blocked in the person's system. So it might actually be something related to their chakras first, right? So their energy system might be unbalanced. And then I'm going into their psyche and seeing, okay, what's off kilter here? And based on the energy medicine frequency that I work with, we can go into the person's psyche and naturally work with the intelligence of their system to rewire the thoughts themselves. So it's the person coming into contact with, okay, what's the belief system that's here when we think about money? And they might say, I believe that money is going to get in the way the relationship with my family. So we start to go back into when's the first time you remember coming in contact with something like that, when you saw a relationship that went downhill because of money or experiences. And so we help them actually access the memory more deeply. And when they can go back in that time space reality and they can access the memory, they can start to liberate emotion that happened in the body that they might not have had the capacity to feel. Once they start to feel those emotions, then we can start to open up the field and start to rewrite the stories. Okay, that's the memory that you saw. It's kind of like titrating. And I know that Tony Robbins does this a little bit where it's like, okay, here's the story. What else can be true, right? So have you had other experiences in your life where you saw people that had really healthy relationships? So it's actually creating an imprint with them. But we first have to go back to the memory. We first have to see where the origin of that thing is and started to actually be able to create new neural pathways. So that's part of the work that I do, is helping them access that memory and then create new stories based on lived experiences and examples that then when they go out into the real world, they can start to, based on you know the behavior of others in the world, like cognitive biases, they can start to actually see the world through a different lens and start to create these new narratives for themselves.
I love that. I really love that. So, and I also love that you are saying that everybody has the ability to hear the spirit, right? We can call it spirit, we can call it heart, we can call it intuition. So, the people now, obviously, we are so busy with everything, right? With the phone, with all the distractions. How you can train this ability to hear your spirit, your intuition?
Yeah. This is, I think, the most important work that we are seeing in our human evolution right now. Given the things that are happening with social media, there's a lot of information that's coming out that people are having a difficult time discerning. Is this true? Is this real? And so I think this will be the most important skill that people start to implement in their life, is connecting with ancient wisdom, their soul, their intuition. And so when people come to me with this question, there's oftentimes a process that we'll need to go through, and sometimes forgiving themselves for the ways that they haven't listened to themselves. We need to build up trust within our own self. And if you've betrayed yourself by not listening to that, or listening to it and it didn't work out the way that you wanted, we have this internal conflict with ourselves of like, I can't trust myself because the time I thought I did, this is what happened, or I didn't trust myself and this thing happened. So it's a relationship that we have with ourselves and with spirit that we need to start to work on.
This, like how I can start to hear, if I want to hear my spirit, like my intuition, like, do you suggest to take any steps, meditate, whatever?
Absolutely. Yeah. It requires us to become less distracted fundamentally. So I think spending time away from technology, spending time more in nature and in silence will help us get in contact with that information. So that's the first thing. Number one tool is meditative practice or mindfulness, distance from technology. We can start to hear that voice. And then the second piece is starting to trust it and starting to act on it and then be like, oh, okay, that's how I experience my intuition, because not everybody experiences it through just a gut feeling. Sometimes we hear a voice, sometimes it comes through a knowing. And so once you start to build this relationship and start to act on it, you start to actually experience, this is how my intuition feels. This is what that frequency feels like. And once you can identify that frequency, then you can start to act in a way of that more clearly in the world.
So you also mentioned the ancestors, that there can be an impact, right? What do you think? How big of an impact is our relationship with our parents in terms of our progress in love relationship, in professional life? Because have you heard about Hellinger system?
Healing system. It sounds familiar, but I'm not sure off the top of my head.
So what he's saying, that your relationship with your parents, like with your mom, is like, if you have bad relationship with your mother, then it's going to affect your love life, your love life, confidence, self-love, and all this area. If you have bad relationship with your father, then it's going to affect your professional life and income. And good or bad relationship, it's not necessarily that you need to be, like with your father connecting and everything, but your attitude towards your parents. Do you think there is some correlation between what you have right now in your life and also your roots, right? Because your mom and dad, these are your roots. And so many people in nowadays are disrespecting their parents, ungrateful. My mom didn't take care of me. My father was doing this and that. And me, myself, Carissa, I can tell that I've been always looking at my father from the eyes of my mother. And since he wasn't the best husband, and he wasn't like a leader of the family, and I was always judging him, I was always rejecting him, up until I was 39, I guess, when I realized, oh my gosh, I was looking at my dad with my mom's eyes. I didn't respect him, and it was really affecting my professional life. What do you think about that?
I think our relationship with our family is one of the most important areas of focus in our own spiritual and personal development. I don't think that we can actually grow to our greatest potential without looking at that. And I think that that's often missed. We think that we need to do our internal work ourselves when actually there's a unit that's needing to be looked at. And I'll tell you, that was where a lot of my biggest growth has come through in the last couple of years. I was judging my father for the ways that he's shown up in the world. I was ridiculing my mother. And if we think about it from a scientific and also spiritual lens, we are created from our parents. And so we have the same DNA. They're part of us inherently. And if we judge our parents, we're also fundamentally judging a part of ourselves. And if we just look at the judgment of the part of ourselves that we project onto our parents, because oftentimes the ridicule, the judgment that we have towards other stems from self-judgment, right? All judgment is rooted towards self-judgment. And so then we're exiling a part of ourselves. So we can't actually love ourselves until we learn how to love another. And oftentimes it's our parents and the ways that we have felt disappointed in them or upset with them for the things that they haven't showed up for in our lives. And so I think it's fundamental and paramount for people to look at those relationships because so much of our wounding and also our beauty stems from that. And if we exile them, then we're exiling a part of ourselves.
Absolutely. And everything changed in my life, and I love that you are acknowledging it because, we are doing exactly all this inner world work, and we are going to all the seminars and doing this personal development, and we disrespect our parents, right? And what helped me in this case was that they are not owning me anything except they gave me life. I'm alive right now. So they did the best they could back then, right? My mother did the best she can with her resources. My father did the best he could with his own resources. And interestingly enough, when I was doing ayahuasca, probably you as a shamanic way, and the first ceremony showed me my relationship with my mother. Where as a kid, I could see my mom standing, suffering, and all of this, and I felt like I even took her pain because I knew she's tired. She's really like only serving and fighting for taking care of us and have a food on the table. And like these were the two things. Firstly was my mother in one ceremony, and another time it was my father. And I'm so blessed that I could see from their perspective how they felt. Because my dad also, he never heard words, I love you, right? His mom was too busy with her own things. So it's very, very, very important, right?
Yeah, I think one of the tower moments that I had in my life was when I was in my 20s or late teens, and I saw my parents as humans. I
Mhm.
had always pedestalized them. And I think we do that a lot when we grow up. Our parents are perfect. They need to act a certain way. They have act a certain way. And once I saw my parents as being human, it helped me realize how much compassion they also get to have and receive from me for the ways that their parents raised them. And I think we're in a time right now where we're evolving so much that we're seeing the ways that our parents were raised inherently shaped them to be who they are today. So I think, that the greatest healing has come for me, and similarly in ayahuasca journeys, whereas I was able to see how much I was projecting so much onto my parents and how it was fundamentally inhibiting the love that I wanted and the relationship I wanted to have with them. I was getting in the way of that because I was needing it to be a certain way or look like something else other than what it was, versus being like, this is the love my father can give me. Can it be enough? Or does it have to look like this in order for me to receive it? And how does that projection, how does that control also show up in every other area of my life? Am I trying to control how a client shows up or how my business looks, versus this is the acceptance of where things are at right now, and can there be beauty in just what is?
I think the biggest suffering for the people is they have some certain expectation how it's supposed to be, how my mom's supposed to be, how my dad's supposed to be, and everybody else. But if you realize, like your mom, your dad, they are not owning you anything. They are exactly as they are supposed to be. And also, when I learned, that was like 2 years ago, my biggest lesson was, and I was in the deepest, deepest points of my life. And the number one lesson that I learned is surrender. It's the same. Like you go all this journey, just give up your control, because I'm also working with a shaman. A shaman is my mentor, and at the beginning he was like, I'm not gonna work with you. I said, what do you mean you will not work with me? He said, because you are so controlling, I'm not gonna work with you. So I had to put my magic, my strategic mind. I had to send him message, and I'm sending him email. And I said email, and I'm saying, so I'm knocking the door, and I realized that I want to improve. I want to become better at this, becoming more, somebody who is giving up the control. And I'm asking from you help, but you are rejecting right now, right? And then he was like, okay, I'm giving you a chance. And now 2 years we are working still together. And he's saying, you are one of my favorite clients. So it's funny. And I think ayahuasca is the same thing, right, Carissa? It's just all about just give up the control. Do not try control anything,
Yeah.
right?
The surrender piece is so important. And even I even had to take a big breath saying that, because I very much resonate with that journey of trying to control, how life needs to be. And oftentimes we're trying to control because inherently we feel unsafe. So if I control this thing, that is where I source my safety. But when we realize that we're inherently safe and we can stabilize in that in our system, there's so much beauty in life that happens naturally without us trying to control. I've realized that so many of the things that I've created in my reality, or that have come to me, or that have expanded in my field, have come from me not controlling and me surrendering an outcome and me holding an intention, but loosely, right? And allowing things to happen more effortlessly. And it often exceeds the things that I would have tried to do anyway. So it's so much an easier, more stress-free, manageable, expansive life when we can learn how to surrender, because the universe, the field, is trying to orchestrate the things that we're holding an intention around anyway. So we can often block our blessings by trying to control the way that things happen and come in. And so there's a lot of beauty in surrender. And I think it's probably one of the hardest things to be able to do or undo, because it requires us to inherently find safety within ourselves, which is the work of a lifetime.
Absolutely. Carissa, what is your wealth formula?
So my wealth formula, I'm trying to think, I even wrote this down after like preparing for this, and I don't even remember what it was, but I do believe that safety, intention, and openness to me feel like a really strong equation. So safety within self, realizing that no matter what's happening in my external reality, I am safe. I am protected. I am okay. It's some of the biggest moments of my life where I had the biggest financial difficulties. I cultivated the most safety because I saw that I was okay. And intention, holding the intention of what it is that you want, right? Being really clear in the field of bringing your awareness, your intention and attention to something that you want to create in our reality. And really surrendering and being open for it to come, and not trying to control it, and being in a receptive energy field. We can have the other two, but then if we're not open and available, and we're trying to micromanage the universe and watch, is money coming in here, is money coming in here, we're pushing away our blessings. And so wealth for me is just beyond the material too. It's wealth, it's prosperity on all levels. And if we want that, we also have to look at the way that what abundance actually is. And it's not just money. It's abundance, it's overflow, it's being provided for, and it's having on all levels. And so wealth for me is wealth in relationships, wealth in health, wealth in our career. And to me, that's the greatest wealth. And we can't have that without those other three pieces. That to me is the strongest equation.
How you're holding the intention on the daily basis, how you keep that focus, because we are so focused on the mind, right? The way it is wired, it's focusing on what we don't want, right? It's so easy to get distracted. So how do you hold this intention on what you want on the daily basis?
Yeah, and ironically, when we hold the intention, we kind of look for us. When we don't have it, we're like, okay, see, I don't have it, right? We start to look for that. So I really have a strong meditative practice where every
Mhm.
morning I'm really focusing on what I'm calling in and bringing it into my body, feeling the feelings of already having it, walking in the world in that way. And I think slowing down has really sped me up. Where before this, I'm holding the intention and I'm taking a couple of breaths into prayer, and I'm speaking to being an open vessel and allowing God to work through me, allowing Creator to work through me. And so it's recognizing that, not to become unconscious throughout the day and just be in the monotony of, okay, getting up, going to work, eating breakfast, coming home, working out. We're in a very doing society. So I think slowing down, tuning in to our internal landscape and choosing to direct our energy more intentionally, just versus getting in this automatic behavior, has allowed me to hold the intention. Because if I'm on my phone, in the elevator, in my car, on the toilet, wherever I am, that is where my awareness and my intention is going. So I'm getting caught up in something. So spending less time on technology, spending more time in your breath so that you can actually tune into the awareness, allows you to direct it more easily.
So beautiful. Carissa, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your wisdom. I really enjoyed our conversation. So is there anything else you want to say? And please also, if people want to find you or work with you, please tell where they can find you.
Yeah, so thank you
Oh,
so much. It's been a beautiful conversation to have this with you. Also, I really appreciate the way that you interview and you also continue to bring us back to like the question, the practicality. That's a beautiful
my
gift of yours.
mind,
It's
my mind.
to direct, but you're
Look,
good at directing, so it's not getting rid of that. It's just also expanding more here too. So I see you
exactly.
in that. And yeah, people can find me on my website, CARISSA Johnsen, Johnsen with an E.com, on my social media, same thing. And yeah, I think the thing that I really feel the most called to share right now is that is this seems odd because it's like nothing I've ever said in this way before, but it really feels like accepting where you're at gives you the the love and the availability and the capacity and the direction to create more. And so when we live in a world where we're very fast paced, we want to create more, we often are sourcing a lot of our energy from what we're creating in the world. And I think that the more that the simplicity of loving ourselves, of accepting who we are and exactly where we're at. If you were meant to be somewhere else, you would be somewhere else, right? So seeing the beauty and the medicine of exactly where you're at in your own cultivation, your own development, in your own wealth process, and seeing that if you were meant to be somewhere else, you would be. So what medicine is meant to be extracted here? What joy is meant to be cultivated here? What presence, what love can you actually fully expand it in this present moment? And that will actually give you the space to be led further in your life. So ironically, I think Carl Jung said something of the same flavor where it's like only when we can accept who we are and where we're at can we actually grow. And I think we're in a very growth oriented society, which I love, but fundamentally we have to pull back and go into the space of our heart where seeing that we are enough exactly where we are right now and letting that be the beautiful guiding force of light that naturally inspires us to move forward, not in a place of trying to prove or to get, but to just naturally grow and evolve because that's what we do. So that would be what I would say.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate, Carissa. It was so beautiful, so well said. And I am looking forward for us to connect in the future and let's see what is the magic that we can create together. Yeah?
I would love that. Thank you so much for having me.